welcome back to my class. This is Mehjabin Fatima, Commerce lecturer at Elizabeth High School and Junior College. In our previous class, we have started third chapter in commerce, that is sole proprietorship, joint Hindu family business and cooperative societies. In our previous class, we have completed first topic, that is sole proprietorship. Now in this class, we will complete our remaining lesson. So let's start with joint Hindu family business. Joint Hindu family business is a unique form of business which is found only in our country, that is India, and it is run by Hindu undivided family, wherein the family members of 3 successive generations owns the business jointly, and this form of organization is managed and controlled under the provisions of the Hindu family section, under provisions of Hindu Succession Act 1956, and the head of the family, known as Karta, he will manage and control all the business, and the head of the family, which is known as Karta, he is the manager and the controller of the business, and all the other members of the business, they are called as co-partners. Let's discuss about these points again with the help of definition. So let's see the definition. It's a business which continues from one generation to another generation. So as we have discussed, it is the continuation part in generation, and it is known as joint Hindu family business. This is the special form of business organization which is now exists only in India. So this type of business or this form of business can be found only in our country, that is India, and the business is within the family. Here in this business, that business will be done within the family members only. Others or outsiders are not allowed in this business unless and until they have adopted someone from outside and the male persons who marries the girl inside this joint Hindu family. And the head of the family is the head of the business also. Here, as I told you, the head of the family or the eldest member of the family will be the head of the business as well, and he is known as Karta, and the members are known as co-partners, and other members and the people who are other than Karta, they are called as co-partners. Let's see what are the features of joint Hindu family business. So first feature is formation. So for the formation of joint Hindu family business, there must be 2 members in the family who are having ancestral property so that they can run that business, and it is not formed and it is not created by an agreement, but it is created by the operation of law. And our next feature is governed by Hindu law. So the management and control of joint Hindu family business is done according to the Hindu Succession Act 1956. Next feature is membership. So the membership of the family can be acquired by birth. Outsiders are not allowed to become co-partners, but adoption can be admitted. So here, if the family they have adopted any other person from the outside, so the family, if they have adopted any person from outsiders, so that outsider will also become the member, but unless and until they have adopted the outsiders, they will not become the member of the joint Hindu family business. So here, only the members of undivided family acquire co-partnership rights by birth. So only the members who have blood relationship with undivided family, they will be the co-partners by birth, and marriage with males also confers membership. Next feature is management. As we have discussed in definition, that management will be done by only the eldest member of the family, that is Karta. He will only manages and controls the whole business, and he is only having the authority to run the business according to his own will. Other members or co-partners of the family, they will not be involved in management. And if co-partners they are not satisfied with the decisions taken by the Karta, the only remedy is to get Hindu undivided family status by the family dissolved by mutual agreement. So if the other members, the co-partners, they are not ready to accept the decision made by the Karta, the only remedy is to dissolve the Hindu undivided family status with mutual agreement. Next feature is profit sharing. So as Hindu undivided family is jointly owned by all the members, all co-partners have equal share in profit. So here the profit will be shared equally among all the members of Hindu undivided family. Next feature is liability. So all the members or co-partners have limited liability except Karta. Only the Karta or the manager of the Hindu undivided family business will have unlimited liability. Self-acquired property of any member will not be taken to pay the liability of the family, but Karta's property can also be utilized to meet business liability. Karta's property can also be utilized to meet business liability as it is unlimited. And our last feature is continuity. So on the death of co-partner or any member of the family, it will not affect the business, but if Karta dies, the next person who is eldest in the family will take over the business, or he will only manage and control the business. And now on the death of Karta, the next eldest member will become Karta. So he will only manage and control all the business. Now on the basis of these features, we have divided the merits and demerits. Now let's discuss about the merits of the Hindu undivided family business. Now let's start with the merits of joint Hindu family business. Our first merit is centralized and efficient management. So being the eldest and most experienced person, Karta manages the business efficiently, and Karta takes all the decisions and gets them implemented with the help of co-partners. This results in unity of command and disciplined management. So by this we can say it is centralized and it has efficient management. And next merit is continuity. This is the most important advantage of joint Hindu family business, as even on the death of Karta, the business will not stop. It will be taken by the another eldest member of the family who is the head of the family after this person or Karta. So he will take over all the business after the Karta and he will continue with the business. So it is not dissolved by the death of any co-partner, but so it is not dissolved even by the death of co-partner. So this type of business will be continued even after the death of the Karta, and it is not dissolved by the co-partner's death. Thus we can say it is continued without any interruption. Next merit is unlimited membership. Obviously, by birth every co-partner automatically becomes member of joint Hindu family business, and minors can also become the member of joint Hindu family business. Hence, there is no limit for membership. Next merit is better credit facilities. So there is more credit worthiness in joint Hindu family business, and more credit facilities are available rather than sole proprietor or when compared to sole proprietor, as Karta will maintain personal relationship and has unlimited liability. Next merit is quick decision. So as Karta is only the decision maker of the family, he will only take decisions on time, and timely and quick decisions will yield good deeds to business. And last merit is secrecy. As Karta will only manage the affairs of the business, he will do it with utmost secrecy which no other business can maintain. So these are the merits of joint Hindu family business. Now let's see what are demerits of the joint Hindu family business. First demerit is no direct reward for efficiency. As Karta alone will look after the business, but benefits are shared equally among all the co-partners. So the person who works efficiently and dedicatedly here will not be rewarded, and Karta's work will encourage laziness among all the co-partners, and or we can say it will promote laziness or idleness among all the co-partners, as they will think if Karta is only the manager or decision maker of the business, then why should we involve in the business? We will enjoy all our profits. So by thinking this, they will become lazy and idleness will be promoted in them. So by this we can say that no direct reward for efficiency. Karta will not be rewarded as he is working efficiently and dedicatedly for the progress of business. Next demerit is limited managerial ability. Till now we are discussing as Karta will manage, Karta will only control the business, Karta will only manages the business, but he or she may not be well conversant with knowledge of business skills. So we can say that Karta may not have business skills and other problems of the business, and he may not have knowledge about the other problems of the business. Thus, expansion and growth of business is difficult as Karta is having limited managerial ability. So, the managerial ability here will be limited as Karta is only managing the whole business. Next demerit is suspicion among members. Since Karta is empowered with vast power of secrecy and Karta can keep secret affairs from co-partners, this leads to suspicion. This leads to suspicion among the members, and which may lead to disastrous for joint Hindu family business. So, the co-partners, they will get suspected about the Karta's decision, and this may lead to disasters of the joint Hindu family business. And last demerit is limited capital and financial resource. So, the capital and financial resources of joint Hindu family business are limited as compared to other form of business organization, that is partnership and joint stock company. The investment are limited only up to resources of one family. So, investments are up to only one family and they may not be sufficient to meet the business requirements for expansion. So, for the growth of business, it required more resources, and these resources may not be sufficient to meet the growth of the business. Therefore, limited capital and financial resource is one of the disadvantage of joint Hindu family business. And nowadays, joint Hindu family is increasingly declining due to the influence of Western individual family system. Now, here we have completed our next topic, that is joint Hindu family business. So, till now we have discussed about sole proprietorship and joint Hindu family business from our third chapter. Now, let us continue with our last topic, that is cooperative societies. Let us see what do you mean by cooperative societies. So, cooperative society word came from the Latin word, that is cooperare. Co means with and operare means to work. Thus, the word cooperation means to work together. So, those who wants to work with some common economic objective can form a society, which is termed as cooperative societies. So, the people or the persons who are interested with common economic objective and they want to achieve that objective, they form a society, and to that society we are calling it as cooperative societies. Cooperative society is a voluntary association of persons who work together to promote economic interest. So, it is a voluntary association, means the persons who are willing to work for the society according to their will, they work together to promote economic interest, and it works on the principle of self-help and mutual help. And primary objective is to render service to the members, and motto of cooperative society is each for all and all for each. So, we can say that the people who are interested for rendering service in the society and for rendering service in economic activities, they come forward and they form a group and pool their individual resources and utilize them in a best possible manner to derive some common goal. So, and the motto of this group of people is each for all and all for each, means they want to help the society for development economically, and these people, they are voluntarily, means with their wish they come forward, they are coming forward in the society and they are forming a groups and they are utilizing their own resources to help or to render the service to the societies. Now, let us see what are the features of cooperative societies. Let us start with the features. Our first feature is voluntary association. As we have discussed, it is voluntary association where the people with their wish they are coming and forming the group to help or to render a service to the societies. So, cooperative societies are voluntary associations started with aim of service to its members. Everyone has liberty to enter and to leave. So, here in cooperative society, whenever the persons who want to join this society, they can join, and whenever they want to leave this society, they can leave. So, they have completely freedom of joining and leaving these societies, and the persons who have the common objective, they can join the cooperative societies, and voluntary membership is main characteristic of cooperative society. It has open membership for everyone. So, the membership is open for all the persons who have same economic objective, and anyone can become member irrespective of their caste, creed, religion, etc. Next feature is number of members. So minimum 10 persons are required to form a cooperative society, but in case of multi-state cooperative society, the minimum number of members should be 50 from each state. Next feature is registration. So in India, cooperative societies are registered under Cooperative Societies Act 1912 and multi-state cooperative societies are registered under Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act 2002. Once registered, society becomes separate entity and attains certain characteristics. Next feature is state control. Since the registration is compulsory, so cooperative society will come under the supervision and control of the government, and each society has to get its account out and each society has to get its accounts audited from cooperative department of the government. Next feature is capital. Here the capital will be contributed by all the members of cooperative societies. Since the contribution is limited, it often depends upon the loans from the government. And our last feature is service motive. So the primary objective is to run. So the primary objective of the members of cooperative society is to render services to its members. Here their aim is not to earn profit like other form of business organizations. Now again, on the basis of these features, let's discuss about the merits and demerits of the cooperative societies. Now let's start with the advantages of cooperative societies. So as discussed earlier, it requires only 10 members to form a cooperative society. So we can say it is easy and simple to form a cooperative society, as there is no need to comply with a number of legal formalities as in case of joint stock company. So there are no formalities like joint stock company in cooperative societies. So it is very easy to form a cooperative society where 10 members or more than 10 members are willingly participating to form a society. Next advantage is service motive. So as we have discussed about this earlier, cooperative societies are started not for profit but for service. The members are provided with goods at cheaper rates. Here under cooperative societies, the members, they are provided with good and cheaper rates, and financial help is also extended to members at concessional rates. So concessional rates will be given to the members of the cooperative society. So the feeling of cooperation is also created among the members of cooperative societies. Next advantage is stability and continuity. So a cooperative society becomes a separate legal entity after its registration. So after the registration, the cooperative society will become separate entity, and the death of solvency, conviction, retirement of any member does not affect the stability and continuity of the cooperative society. As such, these societies enjoys stability and conformity of operation. So on the occasion of death or insolvency or conviction or retirement of any member, it will not affect the continuity of cooperative society. Next advantage is tax advantage. So a cooperative society is exempted from income tax and surcharge on its earnings up to a certain limit. It is also exempted from stamp duty and registration fees. So these cooperative societies, they are exempted from the income tax and surcharge on its earning up to a certain limit. So these societies, they also enjoys a tax advantage. Next merit is no speculation in shares. So in cooperative society, any person can buy shares at any time. Membership is always open to new members. So there is no possibility of speculative dealings in shares of corporation. So we can say in cooperative society, any member can buy shares at any time. So there is no particular time for buying shares in cooperative society, and membership is always open for the members who wants to join the membership or who wants to take the membership in cooperative society, and there is no possibility of speculative dealings in the shares of cooperative societies. Next merit is elimination of middlemen. Cooperative societies eliminate middlemen from the channel of distribution, as they propose goods directly from producer and sell them to the member at lower rates and better quality. The cooperative societies, what they are doing, they are eliminating the middlemen from the channel of distribution, as they are purchasing the goods directly from the producer and selling those goods to the member at lower or cheaper rates, and they are providing the better quality to the members. Exploitation of consumers is avoided here. Next merit is low operating cost. The administrative expenses of a cooperative society are usually low. The management of a cooperative society is in the hands of persons elected by the shareholders. Some persons are employed to look after day-to-day working of the societies. Many members provide administrative services honorarily. Thus, the societies need not spend large amount on management personnel. The administrative expenses of the cooperative societies, they are very low, and the management of the cooperative society will be in the hands of persons who are elected by the shareholders, and same persons are employed to look after the day-to-day working of the societies, or we can say it has low operating cost. And last but not least, merit of cooperative society is aim of mutual prosperity. So we have discussed about the motto of cooperative society. So cooperative societies functions on the principle of each for all and all for each, with the aim of mutual prosperity. So the main motto or aim of the cooperative society is each for all and all for each. So on the basis of that principle, these cooperative societies are working. Besides having many advantages of cooperative societies, it does have many disadvantages also. Now let's discuss about the demerits of cooperative societies. So first demerit is inefficient management. There is a possibility that the management committee members may not take the proper interest in the management, as they are paid only honorarium for their services. So there is a largely possibility of managerial committee, they may not take the proper interest in the management, and they are paid only honorarium of their services here. So because of that, so there will be inefficient management, we can say. And besides, cooperative society cannot afford to employ persons with necessary ability, knowledge and experience, unlike company form of organizations. As they don't have many resources, so they cannot afford to employ persons with necessary ability and knowledge and experienced persons like other form of business organizations. Next disadvantage is limited financial resources. Restriction on divided and the principle of one member, one vote discourage rich people from joining the society. Due to shortage of funds, there is a limited scope of expansion of growth. So there are some restrictions in cooperative societies, that the principle of one member, one vote, this can discourage the rich people to enter or to join the cooperative society. And due to the shortage of funds, there is a limited scope for expansion and growth of cooperative societies. Next disadvantage is lack of unity among the members. The members are drawn from different sections of the societies. There is a lack of harmony among them. The members do not understand the working of the society, so that they start suspecting each other. Many cooperative fail because of constant group rivalry and quarrels among the members. So we can clearly say that there is a lack of unity among the members of cooperative societies, as these members, they are coming from the different sections of the society, so there may be a lack of unity among them, and there may be quarrels and rivalry among the people. Because of that, there is a lack of unity among the members of cooperative societies, we can say. Next disadvantage is non-transferability of shares. So in cooperative societies, the members cannot transfer their shares freely. They are not allowed to transfer their shares freely, but they are allowed to withdraw their capital. So by this we can say there is non-transferability of shares in cooperative societies. Next disadvantage is lack of secrecy. The members of the cooperative society elect persons to manage their societies. These persons remain changing from time to time. The affairs of the cooperative societies are exposed to all the members, so it is very difficult to maintain secrecy of business matters. The members of the cooperative society, they used to elect those members or the persons to manage their societies, and these persons, they will change from time to time, means they will be head for a particular time, and after that they will be changing. So the affairs of the cooperative societies, they are exposed to other persons due to the changing of the head of the cooperative societies, and it is very difficult to maintain the secrecy of the business matters. And the last demerit of cooperative society is lack of competitive strength. Cooperative societies with limited resources are not able to effectively compete with large scale manufacturers who are able to reduce cost and overheads by mass productions. So there is a lack of cooperative strength due to limited resources. As these cooperative societies, they are having limited resources, due to which there will be a lack of competitive strength, so that they cannot compete with other form of business organizations because they are not having the proper resources. So these are the disadvantages of the cooperative societies. Here we have completed our 3 concepts of third chapter, that is sole proprietorship, joint into family business and cooperative societies. I hope you understood these 3 concepts very well. Here we have completed our third chapter. We will continue with next chapter in next class. Thank you.